This summer, Instacart is bringing back your favorites from 1999 with prices from 1999. That means 90s prices on juice pouches that ought to be respected, 90s prices on box mac and cheese, and 90s prices on ham, cheese, and cracker lunches. Enjoy all those throwbacks and more at throwback prices, only through Instacart. $4.72 maximum discount per $10 of eligible items. Limit 3 offers per order. Expires September 5th while supplies last. Discount based on CPI comparison.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
And welcome again to the Explaining History podcast. One thing I don't do probably anywhere near enough of on this podcast is look at oral history. Oral histories are really, really fascinating, and I think that they get, or they're becoming more and more a kind of an integral part of academic research, and they are extremely valuable. Um, and I think the reason why is that they give us perhaps less of a quantitative understanding of history, um, and more of a kind of like a qualitative one. They are, the testimonies of people who, remember the past in the way that they do, not always with perfect accuracy, and that's not always needed or required. Um, the past exists in kind of all of us, and it exists because of the way we share it between ourselves, and it is remembered and misremembered. And I talk about historical memory a lot on this podcast. And the past kind of what we think of the past kind of changes over time, based on what it is we remember of it, how we feel about it. When certain generations die off, um, our conception of the past alters because the memory dies with them. As veterans of the Second World War are now all gone, the Second World War it will inevitably be understood and remembered in different ways. There's a wonderful book. I got it as a Christmas present. It was by Svetlana Alexeivich, called Second Hand Time. And it's an oral history of the fall of the Soviet Union from everybody from across the various social divides in the Soviet Union. It won the well, Second-Hand Time was the winner of the by Svetlana Alexeivich, as it says on the book, brings together dozens of witnesses to the collapse of the USSR in a formidable attempt to chart the disappearance of a culture and to surmise what kind of new man may emerge from the rubble. This is an interesting bit to me, the idea of the disappearance of a culture, of an entire way of life. our conventional understanding of the USSR, which is again is very reductive, is that here is this authoritarian state, and wonderful freedoms broke out when it was gone. But of course, I mean, I'm being facetious and I'm speaking in hyperbole. But that was the version of things that that really emerged in the 1990s. The idea that the freedoms that Soviet citizens encountered were a collapse of their state, and a collapse in national pride, and a collapse in kind of the civic glue that held things together, of the institutions and the practices and the things people could and couldn't do that define our everyday experience of being British or German or Dutch or American or wherever you are listening to this. And I get sometimes reading this, and this is by in no way it justifies Putin's revanchism or any of that. This is a violent, kleptocratic gangster state. Make no mistakes about that. But I get the degree of anger that many Soviet citizens felt towards the West, and felt towards the West as a result of the economic shock therapy that was imported from the West. And it's not to say that um, uh, Soviet and then Russian and other nationality citizens didn't fully engage in this, because in many ways they did. But the experience has been fairly devastating for the Soviet Union and its transition into the Russian Federation. So, here is an interview. A lot of the interviews in Svetlana Alexeievich's book don't really give us demographic clues about the age, the nationality, the locality of the individual, but it's a kind of a conversation that happens. And this chapter is titled, or this vignette is titled, on how we fell in and then out of love with Gorbachev. It reads: the Gorbachev era, huge crowds of people with radiant faces, freedom. It was the air we breathed. Everyone hungrily devoured newspapers. It was a time of great hope. At any moment we might find ourselves in paradise. Democracy was an exotic beast. Like madmen, we'd run around to every demonstration. Now we'd learn the truth about Stalin, the Gulag. We'd read Anatoly Rybakov's forbidden Children of the Arbat and other good books. Finally, we'd all become Democrats. How wrong we were. A single message rang out from every loudspeaker. Hurry, hurry, read, listen. Not everyone was prepared for all of this. Most people were not anti-Soviet. They only wanted to live well. What they wanted most was blue jeans, VCRs, and most of all, cars. On the subject of blue jeans, I was in the Soviet Union in the summer of 1990. I grew up in Hong Kong, and when my family was leaving Hong Kong, I went on a school trip by train. We went through China, and then we got onto the Trans-Siberian from Beijing and crossed all the way to Lake Baikal, and all the way through the continental USSR to St. Petersburg, Moscow, and then St. Petersburg, and then Warsaw and East Berlin and West Berlin, and home to Great Britain. And the thing that I remember vividly was the desire of very, very impoverished Russians to buy jeans. This is the one thing they wanted. If you looked like you were a Westerner and you had a rucksack, they'd approach you and say, "Do you have jeans to sell?" And I had, a couple of spare pairs, but I don't think I sold them. And part of it was because these were the trappings of a consumerism that was, for that period of time, this is quite a short period of time, eagerly sought after. and they people were selling on the streets Soviet memorabilia, belts and Soviet hats and flags and all the kind of the odds and ends that have probably been filched from huge warehouses full of army surplus equipment. And it was a really, really strange time. There were people that would ask to see if you had American chewing gum. I was on a train in the middle of Siberia, and a Russian family in the carriage next door wanted to show me their copy of Dark Side of the Moon. And they wanted to show me um, their copy of Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. These were they're this was vinyl. They were immensely proud of owning that. And I would sit with them, and they would, have offered tea and biscuits and that kind of thing. Huge, very, very hospitable. But um, these kind of signifiers of Westernness were hugely, hugely important, hugely, hugely sought after. And to me at the time, and I was 16 years old, the ownership of jeans or otherwise was of no interest or consequence to me. And the kind of first phase of this collapse of the Soviet Union was simply, for many people, this desire, as it puts it here, to live well, to have blue jeans, VCRs, and cars. Everyone wanted nice clothes and good food. When I came home with a copy of the Gulag Archipelago, my mother was horrified. If you don't get that book out of my house immediately, I'm kicking you out. Before the war, my grandmother's husband had been shot, but she wouldn't say, "I don't feel sorry for Vasco." But she would say, "Sorry, I don't feel sorry for Vasco. They were right to arrest him. He had a big mouth." "Grandmother, why didn't you tell me before?" I'd ask her. "I hope that my life dies along with me, so that none of you will have to suffer the consequences." That's how our parents lived, and their parents before them. Then it was all bulldozed over. Perestroika wasn't created by the people. It was created by a single person, Gorbachev. Gorbachev and a handful of intellectuals. So there's a load to unpack there. We go from this kind of longing for the trappings of American or Western consumerism all the way to when there is, widely available books by Solzhenitsyn and other people like that, and you can bring them home and read them. Suddenly, when that actually kind of interacts with and connects with people that have lived through Stalinism, it's unpleasant. And it's not because these people were um, loyal to Stalin and viewed him as faultless. They viewed Stalin's victims as people that should have shut up and kept their heads down. And this is, again, I mean, this is how deeply brutalized and deeply traumatized societies function. They often side with the persecutor. Well, if you, the victim, had been a bit smarter and just shut up, then probably they wouldn't have had to have done that to you. You just brought it all on yourself and all on the rest of us as well. And so it's the kind of trauma of people who are survivors and have to be survivors. And then we have this idea of bulldozing, of everything that had happened in generations beforehand, simply now being bulldozed when perestroika comes along. We don't need to talk about all of that. The other day, the novelist Frederick Forsyth died. One of his greatest books was the Odessa File, and it was the story of a German journalist in the 1960s who uncovers a secret, post-Reich kind of Nazi organization. And the Odessa file, in the Odessa file, the main protagonist at the beginning starts off by asking his mum, what was it that Dad did in the war? And the book actually captures a very, very prevalent theme of German family life in the mid 1960s in West Germany and probably East Germany too. Don't bring all that up again. It was a very hard time. It was a very hard time for all of us. Don't go bringing that up. We don't want to look at that. And there are certain things that countries, I think, can't look at. The popularity in China at the moment, there's a kind of resurgence in popularity for Mao as China becomes ever more kind of economically powerful.
This is Paige DeSorbo from Giggly Squad. Boost Mobile is no longer that prepaid wireless company you remember. They've invested billions into building their own 5G towers across America. With Boost Mobile's networks, customers enjoy the speed and service they'd expect from the big three. Plus, groundbreaking benefits you'd only get from a true challenger of the industry. Boost Mobile will let you try the network risk-free for 30 days. So visit your nearest Boost Mobile store or find us online at boostmobile.com today.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Has to also be accompanied by an enormous great memory hole. If China, if Mao is this unifying national figure, and that's an extreme if, it was done with enormous bloodshed, enormous violence. And one also has to question the extent to which China's current prosperity is based on somebody who killed 40, perhaps as high as 70 million people in the biggest famine in recorded human history. So it's interesting how our capacity as human beings to selectively remember. But that's what makes looking at historical memory fascinating and perplexing. The place that Stalin continues to have in the thoughts of many Russians, the affections even of many Russians, is based on not his crimes against Russian people. One can always justify crimes against your own population, no matter where you live and who you are, by arguing that the strongman, the president, the dictator, was punishing only the wrong kinds of people from your country. Those who were troublemakers, those who did not get with the program, those who were unwilling to accept this kind of notion of the national. Well, watch what happens in America, in Los Angeles, with great interest, with great care, with great caution, because there will be plenty of people, I grant you, who will give Trump the benefit of all manner of doubt, irrespective of what he does, purely because he's punishing the people that they believe should be punished. Stalin was, to many Russians, a strong and uncompromising figure on the international stage that put a broken country back on its feet and did it. Took a country that was largely peasant and gave it essentially a space program, which obviously manifests itself after he died. So, just to look a bit further in second-hand time, this individual that Svetlana Alexeivich speaks to goes on to say, and this is in a sort of slightly later part of the testimony, Gorbachev is an American secret agent, a Freemason. He betrayed communism. All communists to the trash heap, all Komsomol members to the dump, the Komsomol being the youth organization. I hate Gorbachev because he stole my motherland. I treasure my Soviet passport like it's my most precious possession. Yes, we stood in line for discoloured chicken and rotting potatoes, but it was our motherland. I loved it. You live in a third world country with missiles, but for me, it was a great nation. The West has seen Russia as an enemy, a looming threat. It's a thorn in their side. Nobody wants a strong Russia, with or without the communists. The world sees us as a storehouse that they can raid for their oil, natural gas, timber, and base metals. We trade our oil for underpants. But we used to be a civilization without rags and junk. The Soviet civilization, some felt the need to put it to an end, the CIA, were being controlled by the Americans. They must have paid Gorbachev a tidy sum. Sooner or later, he'll see his day in court. I just hope that Judas lives to feel the brunt of his nation's rage. I would gladly take him out to the Betovo firing range and shoot him in the back of the skull myself. This is the Betovo firing range was the site of some of Stalin's worst crimes.
Instacart is on a mission to have you not leave the couch this basketball season. Because between the pre-game rituals and the post-game interviews, it can be difficult to find time for everything else. So let Instacart take care of your game day snacks or weekly restocks and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because we hear it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. So download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days, excludes restaurants.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by PACE, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
It puts him back his down, slams his fist down on the table. This person is very angry. Happiness is here, huh? Sure, there's salami and bananas. We're rolling around in shit and eating foreign food. Instead of a motherland, we live in a huge supermarket. If this is freedom, I don't need it. To hell with it. The people are on their knees. We're a nation of slaves. Under communism, in the words of Lenin, the cook ran the state. The workers, dairymaids, and weavers were in charge. Now our parliament is lousy with criminals, dollar-rich millionaires. They should all be in prison. Not parliament. They really duped us with their perestroika. Gorbachev, of course, wasn't trying to destroy communism. Far from it. The destruction of communism comes about through the attempted reform of communism and the fact that it's in many ways fundamentally unreformable. And the kind of secondary part of that is the economic shock therapy to which Russia is subjected in the 1990s, which creates this oligarch class that creates the rule of dollar millionaires and now billionaires, that puts Russia's utilities, its kind of industries, up for sale for, cents on the dollar or kopecks on the ruble, and devastated Russian civil society, and devastated this thing that's really important to all human beings, wherever they are, and that is self-worth, it's respect, it's self-esteem, it's the ability to feel good about yourself and your society, which, again, we look at history in very material ways, but that self-worth, that pride, that esteem, that desire for dignity is something that shapes nations, that shapes civilizations. And you can argue, and I think there's a good argument here, that every communist revolution of the 20th century has been a national liberation revolution. It has been, there are elements, if not in ideology, but at least in motivation, in the revolutions that bring Lenin and Mao and Castro and most other, revolutionary leaders of the notional left to power. And why? Because you find countries where, firstly, the state has collapsed, and secondly, where the population is desperate not only for material change to their circumstances, but is desperate for a restoration of those circumstances and the restoration of some sense of national pride and belonging and status. And that's hugely important. And the one thing I think that goes unaddressed and that makes an awful lot of sense out of Ukraine and Georgia and other wars perpetrated by Putin is the desire for self-worth again. The desire that Russians have to see their country respected once more. And that seems irrational maybe to look on the outside. But think about where you live and think about where, your country and how it's perceived and the humiliations it's inevitably suffered in the past, and its need for respect, and the need that the population has to feel good about themselves. And that's, I guess, what the best thing for us to do with all histories, to put ourselves a little bit in the shoes of the people we're hearing from. Anyway, I'll finish there. Thanks so much. I'll catch you on the next Explaining History podcast. All the best. Bye-bye.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by PACE, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Now at Verizon, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on my plan. And you can get a single line for just $45 a month when you switch and bring your phone. That's our best price ever on unlimited welcome with autopay plus taxes and fees, guaranteed for 3 years. Because at Verizon, we got you. Visit your local DC Verizon store today. $20 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate. Additional terms and conditions apply.